and welcome to this chat with Faith and I, content sponsored by our wonderful business partners, PensionBee. We want to talk to you about money in the current coronavirus times and any concerns you might have, money saving. We are very aware that lots of people have been furloughed with 80% of their salary potentially, and are looking to cut corners wherever possible. So that's me, Lynn James, Mrs Mummypenny, and here's Faith.
Hello, I'm Faith Archer. I'm a personal finance journalist and a money blogger at Much More with Less. So I'm here with Lynn to share money saving tips if you're worried about cutting costs due to coronavirus. Looking forward to coming up with lots of hints and tips and practical things you can put into action for this chat sponsored by PensionBee.
Brilliant. So let's do a little bit of personal experience, because we've both had to cut back costs quite considerably at various times of our lives. So my very well publicised story, I paid back 16 grand's worth of debt. I think the whole world knows about that story now, particularly Faith, who helped me with the budgeting at the very beginning of that process. So I came up with a budget. Faith then ripped my budget apart and found hundreds and hundreds of pounds worth of extra savings, some of which I followed, some of which I didn't. But yeah, you really helped me. I just think when you're in a bit of a financial strife, you need somebody else who's non-judgmental, with a different sort of view, that can just look at a piece of paper or a spreadsheet and say, think about this in a different way. So that's where you were.
And I think that's one of the really important things. If you are anxious about your money right now, knowledge is power. So kind of don't run away from it. Don't stick your head in the sand. I know when we moved from London to Suffolk, the big move, and we really had to cut our budget down, one of the first things I did was trying to get a handle on what the money was coming in, not so much, and what the money was going out, and actually making that list. What are the big bills? What are the payments that you have to make? And what are the kind of nice to have?
And very, very recently, we have just done, I'm very excited about this project that we've just written about, our spending diaries. So we both started our spending diaries on the 21st of March, and we kept them going, and well, mine's still going actually forever and a day, but we did a month's worth of spending diaries, and that means you track absolutely everything, and we literally did track everything, even if it was £1 on a newspaper, if you are going to newsagents at the moment. So you write everything down, your bills, business expenses, everything went through, and then we compared them. So we know each other's spending and budgeting inside out at the moment, and it was really interesting to compare what you spend more on, what I spend more on, and alcohol is what I spent more on. Heating oil is what you spent more on.
Yeah, that was not ideal. I do think, look back to when I just used to have a regular gas direct debit going out, and if I wanted to try and cut that, then we could do a certain amount of putting on extra jumpers and turning the radiators down, and also look at our gas supplier and see if we could switch to a better option. I know switching utility bills, it doesn't sound like the most fascinating thing, but it really can save you money. And if you're stuck at home during lockdown, now is a great time to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's sort of one of the, well, should we start? Let's start with the biggest bill and sort of work our way down with our ideas of where to sort of cut things. So most of us, not you, but certainly for me, my biggest bill would be my mortgage, or your biggest bill might be your rent. So the very first thing that hopefully you are all considering, if that's an option, is maybe a mortgage holiday. Maybe if things are really, really tight, if you're worried about cash running out, then a mortgage holiday can be something to consider. Now, I've personally just taken a mortgage holiday. Now, my thought process behind this was, and I won't go on and on, but I'm really worried about what's going to happen in the future. Like, I don't know what's going to happen to my income in 3 months' time, for example, or 6 months' time. So I wanted to make sure I conserved as much cash as possible right now. Now, my mortgage payment is £1,200 a month. So I take a mortgage holiday for 3 months. I've gained back £3,600 into my cash flow for today that I can just leave, sat in a nice little, I was going to say high interest savings account. You can't get interest on savings account at the moment. I've got the money sat in my Marcus account paying a little bit of interest, just because I'm very, very aware that cash is king. I need to prioritize cash. So that's why I took the mortgage holiday. And I'm very fortunate to have quite a low mortgage interest rate on my mortgage as well, 1.39%. So there are situations where a mortgage holiday might not be a good idea, though, which you can probably elaborate on.
I think it's something that a mortgage payment holiday is being promoted right now. A lot of banks are making it really easy, so you can go online and apply for a 3-month mortgage payment holiday. The thing to bear in mind is that those payments don't just disappear. It will mean that either you end up paying your mortgage for a little bit longer, 3 months longer, or because you're still, there'll still be interest racking up even if you're not making the payments. So it might mean that after the payment holiday, your monthly payments go up a little bit, depends on your interest rate, for the rest of your mortgage term. So there's those things to think about. If you are in a bind, and this might, for example, apply after a mortgage payment holiday if things are still tricky, it might be worth switching on a temporary basis to what's called an interest-only mortgage. When talking to your bank or building society, see if you can switch so you're just paying the interest, not paying off the main loan. That would only be a temporary fix, because at some point you're going to have to pay off the whole balance. The other thing I did want to say, if you are worried, and this isn't just your mortgage, this is any bills, any debt, if you are worried about it, talk to the company, or at least contact them online. Don't just stop paying, because that can cause massive problems for your credit record, and therefore your chances of borrowing in future, and actually your chances of getting payment holidays in future. So if humanly possible, don't skip payments. Talk to the company first.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And also a really good point you made there about what happens at the end of the 3-month mortgage holiday, which I think sort of a lot of us, we're almost living for the moment, aren't we? Like I struggle to think beyond the next week, to be honest. So to think what's going to happen in 3 months' time, it's just sort of prepare yourself for those moments. And interest only is an option for certain people. I think if you've got enough equity in your house, then interest only is an option. It wasn't an option to me for some reason when I remortgaged a couple of months ago. I don't know why.
I think the banks and building societies are very reluctant to put people on interest only as the main form of their loan, because they really don't want people to have to lose their houses at the end of the mortgage term if they've got no other way of paying off that loan.
So what about rent then? So what do you do about rent?
I think rent is trickier, although the government is encouraging anybody who's renting to speak to their landlord if they've got financial problems. Landlords can themselves apply for mortgage payment holidays. It doesn't mean everybody automatically will. So again, talk to your landlord, and if you're having problems, if they're still insisting, talk to Shelter. They are the experts at being able to help. I mean, in practical terms, landlords are not meant to be able to bring eviction proceedings during these next couple of months. So you shouldn't lose the roof over your head, but it is tougher if you're renting.
And then we should bring up universal credit, because if you I found an amazing calculator for universal credit on Martin Lewis's Money Saving Expert website, where you just pop in all your details, how many kids you've got, how much you earn, you and your partner, what council tax band you're in, all those kinds of information. And then it plonks out a number at the bottom as to how much universal credit you'd be entitled to, of which rent is a big part of universal credit, isn't it, if you meet all the criteria. So don't I know there's a lot of people applying for universal credit at the moment, but just go and do that form on Money Saving Expert. You can find it easily in the top bar, just to see if you're eligible. It's worth it.
It's definitely worth checking out if there's anything you can claim. I think there's also the Turn to Us website, where the 2 is a figure, and Entitled To, because if you can claim universal credit, then they have made it better provision for money towards rent. But the trouble is there are limitations. If your partner is still working, if you have £16,000 or more in savings, you're just not going to be able to apply. So it is a safety net, but it won't catch everyone.
Okay, so council tax. Lovely council tax, which something we recently learned. My council tax in Hertfordshire of a 4-bedroom house is half the price of Faith's council tax where she lives. Your house is quite a bit bigger than mine, even though they're still both 4-bedroom houses. But I was so surprised that yours was double mine. Well, I mean, I get a 25% discount as well, I suppose. But
yeah, I mean, that is one thing. If you're the only adult in the property, apply for the single person council tax discount, definitely do that. And the government has given local authorities some money to help people who are really struggling with council tax. But, you know, again, it's likely to go to people who are doing things like already claiming universal credit.
Okay. Right. Energy, we've alluded to it already, but it's the simplest thing in the world to switch your energy. It really is. You can use sites like USwitch to put your energy usage in or how much you spend, and they'll give you a recommendation of somebody to switch to that should save you money. Certainly if you've been with the same energy company for, let's say, more than a year, you're probably paying too much for your energy. So that's really worth switching. It's something that I look at once a year. I haven't changed for the last sort of 2 or 3 years because Octopus Energy have actually been really competitive for 3 years, so I've stuck with them. But it's definitely one to look at, isn't it?
Definitely. Absolutely worth checking. Personally, I switched to Bulb, and they have a really good refer a friend scheme, so that you can get £50. Anybody switching can get £50. The other thing to do is put in your meter readings. Because, and gas, electricity, water, all of them. If money's tight right now, put in your meter readings and check what your balance is. Because if you're paying for direct debit, it could be that your direct debit's been set higher than the energy you're actually using. And you might, if you run out of credit, you might want to tap it, ask for a refund now, rather than letting it sit with the energy company till next winter when the bills start going up again.
I never let any credit sit in my account. I check it every month, and if there's a credit sat there, I'm like, right, nope, transfer that back to me straight away. I'm always on top of that. But I've got a smart meter, so my meter readings are always real-time basis. And I've been checking my energy usage each day. I've been getting really quite sad about it and nagging the children to.
But you had a good game with your kids to bring down your energy costs, didn't you? You got them competing to see who could save the most, actually turning off lights and not leaving things to charge overnight, but just while they were charging, that kind of thing. And it's all these small things that can really add up.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. And what I will say about energy and water, I'll bulk those two together for utilities. But if you are having problems paying your bill, I definitely know with Octopus Energy, they will allow you to defer your payments. So that means that you're still going to have to pay for it one day. But if you want to have a payment break for the next, say, 2 or 3 months, then a lot of the energy companies and water companies, certainly Affinity Water, who I'm with, are letting you do that. So there's another little tip for freeing up some cash now, but just remember that you will have to pay for it eventually, like the mortgage.
And I think it's the same thing if you have debt repayments that you're maybe struggling to afford them right now, because I think, again, one of the top 5 costs for a lot of people is car financing. If you've got a car loan, if you've got credit card repayments, other kind of loan, other kind of debt. A lot of them are being a lot more understanding at the moment and giving people payment holidays or freezing payments, that kind of thing. So again, it's worth talking to the companies. The worst thing you want to do is end up in an overdraft, which can have massive charges. So do try and find ways around that. Yeah,
but at the moment, pretty much all the banks that I've certainly read about, they're giving their customers £500 interest-free overdrafts. But then if you go beyond the £500, it's going to start costing you money. And I had a really interesting conversation with American Express yesterday. Cut a very long story short, there's a big charge on my Amex card that shouldn't be there from a flight that was cancelled at the end of March. And I said to American Express, well, no, I'm querying this, so I'm going to leave it sitting on my American Express card. And they're like, well, that's fine. They said that they'll sort of park the payment and treat it as a payment holiday payment, but they said they'll still accrue interest on it. So I was like, well, no, I'm going to have to pay that off then. So I'll be £430 out of pocket again until I've, resolved this dispute. But so American Express really upset me yesterday with that. And phone bills as well. Mobile phone companies, you can pause them for a few months as well. I know EE are doing that.
And I think with mobile phone companies in general, have a look at whether you can bring the payments down to a manageable level. I think a lot of people, if you sign up for a fancy handset, your bill will include payments for that handset. But if you're out of contract, if you finish that contract and you can actually hang on to the same handset, see if you can switch to a SIM-only deal. So you're only paying for your data, your minutes, your texts, and that can be a lot cheaper.
Which I did whilst we were doing our spending diary. So I had the worst bill ever, 92 quid. Like, I bet you had a heart failure when you saw my phone bill was £92.
Whoa, I think, wow, that's a fancy answer.
but like I did as well, because it's not normally £92. There was a bit of a mistake on there, which they reimbursed me. But my mobile phone, which is now 2 years old, I was paying something like £52 a month for this 2-year-old phone. And I switched it to a SIMO contract, which is 40 gigs of data, which is way more data than you'd ever need. And it's £17.50. So huge saving.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're out of contract, switch to SIM only. It's a no-brainer. But you spend hardly anything on your mobile phones, and I still don't understand how your bills are that low. Like, literally, you're paying £8 a month for your contract.
I think it's partly because I've been with my mobile phone company for a long time. We've brought it down. We've got my daughter's phone is kind of a mates rates with Plusnet, who's part of our broadband. So there's ways we brought it down that way. And also, I suppose with working from home, I can piggyback off Wi-Fi a lot, so I don't need to pay for massive data. And especially if you're in a job where you're going to be working from home for the foreseeable future, that's actually worth checking. Can you dial down your mobile package and have a look at your broadband? Because broadband, you might end up going the other way. If you've got a house full of people all trying to access it, you might have to pay a bit more to get a better connection for everybody.
So just before we started recording this video, Faith had been running around her house trying to tell everybody to get off their tablets, get off the games consoles, because she needed the bandwidth.
If everybody on Zoom is a nightmare, and seriously, I tried to get a better broadband connection.
Yeah.
Stuck out here in Suffolk, they were like, no, can't do anything. You can have a second phone line. So I said, great. I tried to book the second phone line, and they said, oh sorry. Social distancing, we can't do it during lockdown because somebody has to come to the house. So yeah, we're stuck with me yelling at the kids, don't go on YouTube. Yeah. But their broadband companies are now so they were recently told off, weren't they, about not telling people when they were out of contract that they could get a better deal. So it's now the sort of law that these I'm not sure if it is the law, but they need to tell customers when they're out of contract if they can get a better deal. So you should have been told if your broadband is too expensive, but you might have missed the email or the letter that came through. So that's another one to check and switch. Absolutely. And have a look, see if you can get a better deal switching elsewhere. But also, I've had quite good experiences in the past ringing up my current supplier and saying, look, I'm worried about the size of my bills. What can I do? And we've come up with things like I've paid for line rental for a year in advance. That's brought my monthly cost down. We've switched me to different packages. For example, my mum used to live abroad, so I used to pay for a package that had international calls. I just don't need those anymore. It's brought my bills down every single month, which is a great help.
Right, let's talk about food, our favourite subjects on lockdown. So how much did you spend on food in a month? And I think I was 425 quid for the month, and you were a bit more, weren't you?
Was I about
460?
I think I was about 470, because I think the difference, because you'd had a couple of takeaways for that month, so if you added 4 takeaways, then we came out about the same. Exactly, two. But it is one of those things with food is a massive bill for most families. It's going to be your second biggest expense after your mortgage or rent. And the harsh thing is that if you can cook more, it's likely to cost less, because let's face it, if you're paying somebody else to do the work, ready meals, deliveries, takeaways, that kind of thing, it is going to be more expensive. But I must admit, I don't know about you, but the treadmill of having everybody at home all the time producing, I've got meals coming out of my ears, trying to keep everybody fed. They keep wanting lunch.
And like trying to think, I feel quite a lot of pressure on me to cook things that are different. I don't know why. I think it's probably just pressure I'm putting on myself. Like, I don't want to be making, the same old spaghetti bolognese or the same old shepherd's pie. I've got this like 10 dishes that I just routinely push out again and again and again. I want to be trying like new things, which inevitably they don't even eat. But at least you're trying. But I know like it's an extravagance, and I know you told me to cancel this bill, and I'm not gonna. But I love my Mindful Chef boxes. Like it's 25 quid for a week, and you get 4 meals from that. So, okay, I know it would be cheaper to buy it from the supermarket, but the food it's like English produced, it's like really lovely suppliers, it's really good quality, and it's healthy. And I enjoy making it. I enjoy the sort of chef process of following Fern Cotton's recipes in the little book. So I really love my Mindful Chef boxes, and it's been helping me to lose weight.
I bet it also helps cut food waste as well, those delivery boxes.
Yes, exactly. And you can take all the packaging to my local corner shop, and they just come and collect it for you, which is a bit.
Right. Does it get recycled afterwards or reused?
Yeah, I mean they're not doing that at the moment because of lockdown. But I was going to say in normal times. I'm going to stop saying in normal times, because I don't know what we're going to go back to. It's probably never going to be like it was before ever again. But who knows? That was quite a big statement saying that, actually, wasn't it? But we don't know where we're going to be in a month's time, 3 months' time, do we? So hence the importance of this discussion. Alcohol spend. So Faith did a bit of a sneaky on alcohol spend, where she appears to have done a big wine order and had quite a lot of bottles of wine in her wine rack already before lockdown. So didn't really spend that much on alcohol.
Well, we don't normally drink huge quantities, and also I usually save up Sainsbury's Nectar points all year.
Oh yeah.
Double up promotion where you can get exchange them twice the value for Taste the Difference wine.
Yeah. At Christmas time,
we had some of that. And also I tend to, every so often I'll order a crate of wine. There's a whole load of different wine companies and wine clubs out there that will do you an introductory case for a bit less than it would cost normally. So yeah, we'd ordered a certain amount over Christmas.
Or you just buy your booze from Aldi, where it's like really cheap. But I still managed to spend actually so some of my booze spend was from Aldi, but I love Aldi. It's like one of my favorite shops. I know that's really sad, but I just love it as a shop. And their like gin is amazing. And I found this really great wine, which is like £4.99 a bottle. And it's like my favorite ever wine. So I'm going to go to Aldi later this afternoon and buy like 6 bottles of it. It's 30 quid for 6 bottles. Like,
win-win.
Right, so on that note, right, other costs. So other things that we haven't mentioned already that we can sort of tackle to save money on. So I will start with contact lenses, because I found a really great way of saving money on contact lenses. So I used to subscribe to, I need to keep an eye on time because we've probably got like 10 minutes left. I used to get my contact lenses from Specsavers, and it was £18 a month. And you get them, you know, rock up in the post every month. And it was quite a lot of money, £18 a month. So I did some research and found Vision Direct, and I ordered in our spending diary 6 months worth of contact lenses was £66 for 6 months supply. So that's a huge saving there. And they send you a little bag of Haribo in the packaging.
Well, there you go. Definitely cheer you up at these kind of times.
That's my first top tip.
But I think you put your finger on it, which was having a look at what your regular spending was and then trying to think about, okay, how do I cut? How do I make that smaller? Because one of my, big top tips is to have a look at your bank statements or get onto online banking and have a look at all your direct debits and standing orders, because there may well be ones that you can't cancel your council tax, but if there are things that you are no longer use, so it could be anything from magazine subscriptions that you don't read anymore. I know there have been people who've discovered they're paying mobile phone insurance for handsets that broke a couple of years back. I know a lot of gyms that people can't use right now, they have been willing to let people freeze their membership.
Yeah.
Certainly I had a situation that I paid for a newspaper subscription that I wasn't going to the newsagent anymore to pick it up, and paid for a Weight Watchers subscription where I couldn't go to the meetings. And with both of those, I was able to shrink the cost and go for digital only options.
Yeah.
So having a really hard look at direct debits and standing orders and see what you can cut and shrink. Yeah,
it's almost being quite strict with yourself, isn't it? It's like me, for example, I've got Amazon Prime for the films, I've got Netflix, and I've paid for a TV license. Like, do I need all 3 of those subscriptions? Yes, I do, because I've got 3 children at home who watch all of these films, and I'm just not going to cancel any of them. But something I read on Netflix the other day, though, with the general subscription for Netflix is £8.99 a month, but 2 users can do that. So we could, in effect, share a Netflix subscription between us and pay £4.50 each in different households.
Yeah, I think you can. I mean, I think Netflix really chose to get heavy. Isn't it meant to be at the same address? But I think practically a lot of people do.
Yeah, you can do it.
Netflix accounts. So yeah.
Yeah, that's I got that from a reputable source. Sky Sports. Oh my gosh, Sky. I've spoken to some people who were spending like £120, £140 a month on Sky because they've got the whole, kit and caboodle.
Yeah.
Quite really question if you want to be spending £120 a month on a TV package. That seems quite excessive to me. I mean, obviously Sky Sports, there's nothing going on at the moment anyway, so I hope people have phoned up and put a halt on that. If you haven't, then make sure you do it. But yeah, there's so many of those entertainment packages, isn't there, where you're almost tempted to sign up to them when they first come out with your 7-day free trial or something, and then you end up with this subscription that's going on for months and months and months that you don't realise. So yeah, print out your bank statement and have a check. I used to pay for dishwasher insurance. That was like 20 quid a month or something, and those kind of appliance insurances, I don't really believe in them, because inevitably your appliance is brand new, so it's not really going to break, is it? I don't know, maybe you've got a different view on that to me, but I'm not sure they're worth the money.
Most of them, I don't pay the insurance on it. I think if you're if you're kind of lucky enough that you've been able to siphon off a bit of a cash in an emergency fund, so that you do have that money if your dishwasher gives up or your washing machine breaks down or the car needs new tires, then because I've got that savings account for emergencies, then I don't pay for many of the insurance policies. The
Yeah,
insurance policies that I do pay for are, aside from car and home insurance, I've got a life insurance policy, as has my husband,
yeah.
in case the worst case happens, and that is something that I would recommend.
And I would absolutely not cancel that. No.
Yeah.
I've got income protection insurance. I would not cancel that either.
Well, the really good thing about life cover is that the younger you are and healthier you are when you start, the smaller the premiums.
Yeah,
So I think we're in a similar situation. I started my policy in my 20s, and
yeah,
it's less than £14 a month.
yeah,
But it would be a pretty big payout if the worst happens. So I'm keeping with that. And the other thing I'm keeping with, I do a certain amount of savings, and I finally got around to setting up a small but regular pension payment. Because if you're self-employed, you don't have a boss to set up a pension for you
yeah,
or to pay in on your behalf. And I've tended just to put in a lump sum maybe once a year, coming up to the end of the tax year. So now I've just
yeah,
got that £100 going out into my pension that's going to go in every month.
yeah.
And I still want to top it up, but at least there's something regularly slipping away that I'm not going to notice so much when it disappears.
Yeah, and I would have liked to have done that, particularly as this is sponsored by PensionBee. But sorry, PensionBee, but I have prioritised my emergency fund over my ISA contributions, over my pension, over anything sort of longer term like that, because I'm just feeling really, really paranoid that I used to think that 3 months expenses was enough to have in my emergency fund, but I had a bit of an emergency in January where I had a very big bill, and I literally wiped out my 3 months emergency fund, and I had to borrow some money from a couple of friends. So it's just made me realise that my emergency fund actually probably needs to be more like 6 months worth of expenses, which is painful to have that much money sort of sat in, a Marcus 1.2% interest account, but at least it's there. You've got that reassurance that that emergency fund is there. So I'll say it's one of my sort of core financial bits of guidance is make sure you have that emergency fund for, as you said, that time when you need, I need 2 new front tires. I got told that on Monday, so that comes out of my emergency fund.
Very cool. But it does bring peace of mind. And I think, as you say, people are in very different situations. So right now, your focus is on the short term, cutting your bills, building out your emergency fund. But there are other people where COVID-19 has actually left them with more disposable income rather than less. Because if your job has continued, if you're still getting paid as normal, but you're working from home, so you don't have commuting costs, you're not paying for petrol, you're not paying for childcare, there's none of the
Yeah.
fun stuff like eating out or activities you can be doing. So there is actually a chunk of the population with more free cash than they had before, and therefore now is quite a good time to think, could I put some in emergency savings? Could I pay into a pension?
Yeah.
What can I do with that spare cash so it doesn't just evaporate?
Yes, very good point. Well made. I think we've covered everything we were meant to cover. So yeah, if you've got any other questions, then just drop it to either of us and to PensionBee, because they'll be sharing this around as well, and we will do our best to answer any of your questions. But yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Bye.